3 months after I said, "Don't regret it," the bank didn't call me. They called my son. I heard the voicemail later, his voice tight, pretending it was nothing. I knew then his story was already cracking. He just didn't know how wide yet. Let me rewind. My name is Patrice. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I used to think I was doing the right thing by staying quiet. That morning, the one that matters, I was standing in my kitchen with cold coffee. It smelled burnt, like I'd left it too long. My phone buzzed on the counter, a missed call, then another, both from my son, Evan. I didn't call back right away. That was new for me. He'd been telling me for weeks that business was hard, slow market, contractors holding back, everyone nervous. He said it casually, like bad weather. Then he said we needed to tighten things up. He started with me. "Mom, let's cut your allowance in half for now," he said, calm voice. Like he was talking about changing cable plans, just until things pick up. Then he added, "And those coffee meetups with your friends? You should probably stop. It adds up." I said okay. I didn't even argue, honestly. I didn't want to be the problem. I told myself this is what mothers do. You step back, you adjust, you don't complain. So I did. I stopped going out, bought cheaper food, ate the same thing 2 days in a row. I didn't ask him for anything, not once. What I didn't know, what he didn't think I'd notice, was that while my money was being cut, his wife's parents were suddenly doing just fine, better than fine. New places, nice dinners, overnight changes. When I finally said something, when I finally asked how that made sense, he looked at me and said, "I just want to take better care of my parents. What's the problem?" I remember the hum of the fridge behind me. Too loud. I remember thinking, so this is how it's going to be. I told him, very calmly, "Don't regret it." Quick aside if you've ever said something without raising your voice and watched someone flinch anyway. You know exactly why I paused after that. That was the moment everything started moving. Even though it looked like nothing happened at all. The store didn't start as his idea. It started as mine. I put up the money. My money. Years of saving. No vacations. No upgrades. Ghosts. I wired it over in chunks that made my stomach tighten paint inventory. Lumber racks, fasteners, drywall, the boring stuff contractors actually buy. We opened in Columbus because that's where the work was. Small crews, remodels, fix and flip types who needed things fast and cheap. At the beginning, Evan came to me with a clipboard and a plan. He talked fast. He always does when he wants something. "Mom, suppliers don't take retirees seriously," he told me, leaning on the counter. "They want a younger face. Someone who can move quick." I told him I could still move quick. He smiled. That tight smile. "You can, but it helps if I'm the one on the calls." Credit lines too. Banks like continuity. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it either. I told myself this was normal. Parents step back, kids step up. That's how it's supposed to go. We signed papers. On paper, I stayed the owner, but I had signed a limited power of attorney for operations, thinking it was just for daily logistics. I didn't realize that in his hands, logistics meant rewriting the hierarchy of who the bank talked to in real life. He took the keys and the passwords, effectively locking me out of my own authority. He started coming home late, talking about vendors like they were his old buddies. A month in, I asked to sit in on a call with a supplier who kept shorting our deliveries. Evan waved it off. "I've got it handled." The next week, I asked for the bank statements. He slid me a summary instead. 1 page. Clean. Too clean. Details just confuse things, he muttered. Already packing up his laptop. Trust me. Trust him. I did. I swear I did. When a vendor showed up asking for Evan and not me, I laughed it off. Laughed. When the bookkeeper started emailing him only, I told myself it made sense. He was there every day. I wasn't. There's a sound a door makes when it closes softly behind you. No slam. Just a click. That's what this felt like. I didn't fight it. I didn't push. I let him run the place. I stayed quiet and told myself I was being supportive. Looking back, that's when I handed him more than the store. I handed him the space to decide who mattered and who didn't. He brought it up like it was already decided. We were standing in the back office. Invoices spread out, the printer whining like it always did. Evan tapped a line with his finger and shook his head. Margins are shrinking, he muttered. Paint's up, lumber's up. Everybody's nervous. I nodded. That part was true. I'd lived long enough to know markets breathe in and out. Then he looked at me, not angry, practical. We need to cut your allowance in half for now. I blinked. Not because I didn't hear him, because he went straight there. For how long, I asked. Until things stabilize. He shrugged. You don't really need that much anyway. That stung. But I swallowed it. I told myself he was stressed. He didn't stop there. And those coffee meetups you do every week with your friends. He leaned back in his chair. You should drop that. It adds up. I laughed once. Short and dumb. It's coffee. Evan, coffee becomes lunch. Lunch becomes gas. It's all connected. He talked like he was explaining math to a child. I looked at the numbers again. I didn't argue. I nodded. Okay. I told him, we'll do it your way. He relaxed. I could see it, like a weight slid off his shoulders. I texted my friends that I'd be staying in. I chose the cheaper brands at the grocery store without a word. I told myself, this was support. But I didn't realize the tightening only had one direction away from me and toward a lie. I kept telling myself this was temporary. This was support. This was what mothers did when their kids were under pressure. Still, there was this quiet feeling, sitting heavy in my chest. Like something had shifted and no one had asked me if I was okay with it. By the end of the week, I realized something simple. The tightening had a direction. It didn't happen all at once. That's the part that still bothers me. One morning I realized I hadn't seen a bank email in weeks. No alerts, no notices, nothing. I figured it was a glitch. I asked Evan while he was tying his boots by the door. They changed the system. He replied without looking up. Everything goes to one inbox now. Which inbox? Mine. It's easier. Later that day, a supplier called, asked for Evan, not me. When I told them I was the owner, there was a pause. Then an awkward, oh. He told us to go through him. I brought it up that night. Evan rubbed his face, like I was exhausting him. Mom, this is bad timing. One vendor's already threatening to pause deliveries. That's serious. I muttered. Exactly. He pushed back. If they hear you're stepping in, they'll think I can't manage. The next week it was the bank. A warning about our credit line. Evan came home late, pacing the kitchen. They're nervous. He snapped, they think we're unstable. I told him I should be on the call. He shook his head fast. No, that'll spook them. I stood there, hands flat on the counter. I still own the place. He turned on me then, eyes sharp. Do you want the store to fail? That word hung there. Fail. Like a threat. Like it would be my fault. After that, every question I asked turned into a crisis. Every request became proof I didn't trust him. He stopped asking my opinion, started informing me after things were done. Passwords changed, meetings happened without me, decisions were framed as emergencies. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't storm out. I just felt smaller each day, like the walls had moved in an inch at a time. Somewhere in all that quiet, I realized I wasn't stepping back anymore. I was being boxed out. He told me they were going to her parents' place for dinner. Nothing fancy, just family. Don't wait up, Evan muttered, grabbing his jacket. We'll probably stay the night. I nodded. I was standing by the stove, scraping leftovers into a pan, chicken from 2 nights ago, dry around the edges. I told myself this was fine. Support looks like this sometimes. Quiet. Unseen. His wife waved on the way out. Quick smile, phone already in her hand. That weekend passed slow. I stayed in, folded laundry, ate the same meal twice. When the fridge kicked on, it sounded louder than usual. I didn't text. I didn't ask if they got there safe. I didn't want to look needy. 2 days later, I was scrolling without thinking, just killing time. Then I saw it. Her mother's account. Public. She wasn't careful. A photo popped up first. A rooftop brunch downtown. White plates, drinks sweating in the sun. The next slide showed a boutique hotel lobby I recognized. Clean lines, expensive smell. Even through a screen. Then shopping bags on a bed. Big ones. The caption was posted late, but the timestamp wasn't. I zoomed in. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I opened the comments. Hearts, smiles. Someone wrote, "Well deserved." I checked the date again. Same weekend. The one Evan told me was just dinner. That night. He called. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Casual?" "Too casual." "Fine," I replied. "Did you have a nice time at her parents' house?" "Yeah," he answered fast. Low key. Needed the rest. I stared at the screen after the call ended. The fridge hummed again. Same sound. Same kitchen. I didn't confront him. Not yet. But something had shifted. This wasn't a feeling anymore. This was proof, timing, receipts, and faces smiling in places that cost money. I put my phone down and cleaned the pan again, even though it was already clean. Some lies are small until they aren't. I waited until the next evening. Not dramatic. Just timed it so I wouldn't sound shaky. I held up my phone. Your mother-in-law posted pictures. Evan glanced at the screen. Barely a second. He didn't blink. That told me everything. So he replied, already defensive. "So you told me it was dinner, at their house." He exhaled through his nose. Plans changed. To a hotel, shopping, rooftop brunch? He crossed his arms. Her parents are really struggling. "Mom," I laughed once. It slipped out before I could stop it. "They look fine." He frowned like I was missing something obvious. "They've been under a lot of stress." "My wife needs peace right now, and I don't." "You're strong," he pushed back. "You can handle less." That word again? Handle. Like I was built for shortage. I reminded him my allowance had already been cut in half. I reminded him I'd stopped going out. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped asking for anything. He shrugged. "They need it more." There it was. Clean. Out loud. I felt my chest tighten, then go oddly quiet. Like a switch flipped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I swear I surprised myself. I nodded once. "Okay." He relaxed. "Thought he'd won," I added. "Calm as anything. Don't regret it." He scoffed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't explain. I picked up my phone and walked away. Later that night, alone in my room, I replayed his words. Strong. Handle it. Need it more. That was the moment I stopped trying to be understood. I started paying attention instead. After that night, I didn't argue anymore. I didn't remind him of anything. I went quiet in a way that made him comfortable. I started writing things down. Dates first, then patterns. When my allowance dropped, when his wife's parents suddenly started posting again, when he claimed a vendor was on pause but trucks still rolled in, I didn't snoop. I didn't hack. I just watched. Every time Evan tossed out a number, I wrote the time next to it. Every time he blamed the market, I checked what actually came through the door. He stopped talking details, which told me more than the details ever did. One afternoon, a letter showed up with the store's logo stamped crooked in the corner. Not his name, mine. Late payment notice. I read it twice. Slow, then a third time. The amount wasn't huge. It wasn't panic level. It was the kind of notice vendors send when patience starts thinning. I called the supplier. A man named Ron picked up. His voice went from defensive to relieved the second I introduced myself. Patrice, thank God. We've been trying to reach the authorized officer for weeks. Evan kept saying you were traveling, but your accounts are 60 days past due. I am. I replied, what's the issue? He hesitated. We've been waiting on payment. Evan told us to hang tight. How long? Couple weeks. That didn't line up with anything Evan had told me. I thanked Ron and hung up. My hand was steady. That surprised me again. I pulled out my notebook, drew a line, above it. What Evan claimed, below it. What actually happened. The gap between those two kept getting wider. The store wasn't just slow, something was leaking. I went digging where he assumed I wouldn't. Not his laptop. Not his phone. My old file box, the one under the bed with the bent corner, receipts, statements, paper that smells like dust and time. I pulled the incorporation file first, then the operating agreement, then tax paperwork from the early years, when we still double-checked everything together at the kitchen table. It took a while for it to land. I never signed away ownership, not once. I gave him authority to run operations. Day-to-day, purchasing, vendor calls, that was it. My name stayed where it started. On the spine of the whole thing. I asked him for full statements the next morning. Calm, direct. Just send me everything. I told him. Bank activity. Transfers. The whole picture. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Then his phone buzzed. He turned away too fast. That's not necessary, he muttered. You'll just get confused. Send them, I replied. By that afternoon, I logged into the shared server and saw the filters he'd set up redirecting every bank alert to a hidden folder before I could see them. When I confronted him, he didn't even flinch. She messed up the sink, he snapped, blaming the bookkeeper again. I'll fix it. The bookkeeper. A woman named Dana, who'd been with us since the first year, called me later. Her voice was low. He told me not to talk to you, she whispered. I didn't like that. I told her to forward nothing. Not yet. That night, Evan tried a different angle. Mom, you're tired. This stuff stresses you out. I'm 61, I replied. Not lost. He scoffed. You're remembering things wrong. That was the moment I stopped explaining myself. I called a lawyer the next day, local, boring office, fluorescent lights. He read the documents slow, then looked up. You own this company, he told me. Your son works for it. The lawyer drafted formal requests, records, statements, timelines, nothing dramatic, just process. When Evan got the notice, his hands shook. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He tried to joke. You really doing this? He asked. I am. I replied. The power didn't swing back all at once. It inched, like it had before, only this time. It was moving toward me. The call didn't come to me. It came to Evan. I found out because he showed up at my door with his jaw tight and his phone still buzzing. They froze the account. He muttered. Not angry. Scared. I didn't react. I set my mug down and looked at him. The house was quiet, but for the first time, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt like clarity. I wasn't losing a business. I was finally seeing the one I'd already lost. He paced. It's temporary, compliance thing. Why, I replied. He opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. Irregular transfers. The word sat there between us. Irregular. By noon, The bank sent a formal notice. Review pending, transactions flagged. I read it slow, plain language. No drama. That's what made it heavy. An internal audit followed. Quiet people asking boring questions. They found money labeled as vendor relations that never went to vendors. Personal charges tucked inside neat categories. Transfers that led back to his wife's parents. Clean paths. Ugly truth. Contractors stopped placing orders. One texted Evan, then blocked him. A key supplier tightened terms and asked for payment up front. No yelling, no threats, just distance. Evan tried to pull me into it. This is getting out of hand. It already did. I replied. He lowered his voice. You could make a call. Clear this up. I shook my head. I don't explain misuse. He stared at me like I'd spoken a different language. By evening, he stopped blaming the market, stopped blaming stress. He sat down and rubbed his hands together like he was cold. This wasn't supposed to happen, he muttered. I watched him realize something he'd avoided for months. The story wasn't ours to control anymore. Family didn't matter to the bank. Intentions didn't matter either. Paper did. And paper doesn't care who you thought you were protecting. Evan showed up early. Too early. That's how I knew he was scared. He sat at my table. Elbows in, hands clasped like he was praying. Mom, this has gone far enough. I waited. He started fast. This was never fraud. It was temporary. I was covering gaps. You moved company money, I replied, into personal hands. He waved it off. My wife pressured me. Her parents needed help. When my money was cut, I answered. You told me to handle it. He leaned forward. You're overreacting. You could stop this. One call and it all slows down. I shook my head. I don't slow down consequences anymore. His face hardened. So you're choosing paperwork over your own son. I'm choosing reality, I replied. Then came the pivot. The economy's trash. Contractors pulled back. None of this would have happened if the market hadn't frozen. You told me the market was the reason. I answered. Turns out it was the excuse. He went quiet. Finally, softer. If you take me off operations, I'm done. I already did. That landed. The lawyer handled the rest. Clean, boring, effective. Evan was removed from control. My ownership was reinstated. The civil case moved forward. Vendors stopped returning his calls. Contractors who once joked with him at the counter wouldn't look him in the eye. His in-laws disappeared the same week the transfers stopped. No visits, no texts, just silence. He tried one last time. You ruined my life. I looked at him. I stopped saving you from it. Here's the part I didn't expect. It didn't feel good. It felt final, heavy. Like setting something down you carried too long. A small life lesson. If you're listening to this and it hits close, protecting someone from consequences doesn't make you kind. It makes you invisible. And invisibility is expensive. Near the end. If this story feels earned, tap like. If you've lived something similar, drop a comment. And if you want more real stories like this, subscribe. It helps more than you think. Evan left without another word. The door clicked shut. Same quiet sound as before. Only this time, it wasn't closing me out. I kept the store. I kept my name. I lost a version of my son I'd been pretending still existed, and I'm still deciding what that means.